Also new at 11, a Brooklyn lawmaker appears ready now to adapt to a potential Supreme Court decision that could impact the whole process to get a concealed carry license in New York State.
The case, New York Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, was presented to the court back in November. And while it's unclear how the justices will rule, as our Rob Hackford explains, that downstate lawmaker has a bill on the table, right, Rob?
Yeah, Scott and Mary Ellis, on the table in the loosest meaning possible right now, but Assembly Bill 8684 has no co-sponsors and no companion bill in the Senate. But gun advocates are already speaking out against it, and even our constitutional expert says it may not hold water. But regardless of where you stand on the topic, here's why you should be aware of it. In its current form, Two on Your Side legal analyst Barry Covert believes Democratic Assemblymember Joanne Simon's bill 8684 doesn't pass constitutional muster. It proposes limiting where a firearm can be possessed, including most public transportation, food and drink establishments, and gatherings of 15 people or more.
In most cases where you have a constitutional right, officials are not allowed to have discretion as to whether you can exercise that right. For example, the courts have held that driver's licenses are not issued as of right. I don't have a right to have a driver's license. But the Second Amendment says that I do have the right to possess weapons. So what is the scope of that right?
A scope that in the coming weeks the Supreme Court could redefine as they weigh New York's current procedure to get a concealed carry permit, which requires gun owners to justify why they'd need one.
We know that our rights are not limitless. The question is, how narrow do the regulations upon my rights have to be in order for them to be constitutional?
But despite the Supreme Court's conservative majority, Covert says the court doesn't have to strike down the state's rules, but could instead recommend adaptations. UB political science professor Sean Donahue, however, says Simon's bill could be a way to sidestep.
This is anticipating that there's going to be an unfavorable ruling against the state on this, and wanting to fill in kind of what would be left that the state could do to prohibit concealed firearms in certain locations.
Whether it's too early to judge this bill, which has no co-sponsor and no companion bill in the Senate, Donahue says will largely be up to Democratic leaders.
The big question is, will you have a lot of folks who are going to say that it's premature, that we should wait for a ruling? Or do we kind of, as Barney Fife used to say, nip it in the bud?
The problem with analyzing whether this type of legislation can be successful or not is we need to know what the Supreme Court rules, because they're probably going to rule on a lot of issues that would pertain to such legislation.
Well, the Supreme Court is expected to rule on the state's concealed carry law at the latest by June when they finish up their session. I did request to speak with Assemblymember Joanne Simon about her legislation, but have not received a response. In the studio, Rob Hackford, Channel 2 News.